Good morning, Year 6, and welcome to Chapter 3, A Beastly Child. Say hello, everyone.
Hello.
With baby Herbert gone, Chester, Stella's father, became the heir. Growing up, Alberta was absolutely beastly to him. As a child, she would give her little brother a highly poisonous tarantula spider for Christmas. She'd collect rocks and dust them with icing sugar, then give one to her brother to eat, pretending it was a rock cake. Ouch. She would peg him to the washing line and let him dangle there all afternoon. She would chop down a tree while he was climbing it. She would play hide and seek with him, and Alberta would let the boy hide, and then she would go on holiday. Let's hear your reactions, boys and girls. She would shove him in a lake when his back was turned, feeding the ducks. She would replace the candles on his birthday cake with sticks of dynamite. She wasn't very nice, was she? She would swing him around the playroom by his ankles as fast as she could, and then she'd let go. She'd cut the brakes on the cables on his bicycle. She would force feed him a bowl of live worms, saying it was special spaghetti. During a snowball fight, she would cover cricket balls in ice and hurl them at him. Ouch! She would lock him in a wardrobe and then push it down the stairs. She'd put earwigs in his ears whilst he was sleeping so he would wake up screaming. She would bury him up to his neck in the sand at the beach, and then she'd leave him there while the tide came in. How awful. Poor little boy. Remember, this is Stella's father. Despite all this, Chester was always kind to his sister. When Lord and Lady Saxby died, and he eventually inherited Saxby Hall from his parents, he was determined to look after the old place as best he could. The new Lord Saxby loved the house as much as he loved his parents always had. But because Chester was by nature such a generous man, he gave the family's huge treasure trove of silver and jewels to his sister, Alberta. Altogether, it was worth thousands and thousands of pounds. However, within a short while, the woman had lost it all. That's because Alberta had a dangerous obsession. Do you know what it was?
No.
Tiddlywinks. It was a very popular game at the time, and Tiddlywinks was played with a pot and different sized discs of winks. There she is. The aim was to use your large wink, named a squidger, as a to propel as many of the smaller winks into the pot as you could. From childhood, Alberta would force Chester to play with her. To stop her hurling the pot of winks across the room if she lost, Chester would always let her win. Alberta was not only a very bad loser, but she was also a cheat. As a child, she created her own Tiddlywinks moves, all of them completely against the rules. Wibble scrump, to eat your opponent's squidger. Nash nosh would be to bite your opponent's hand while they tried to play the game. Knicker knocker glory was hiding all your opponent's winks in your knickers. Boom shakalak was to fire your winks into the pot with an air rifle. Winkferno, burn all your opponent's winks. Knee thumper, to make the Tiddlywinks table shake, she used to use her knee and bash it underneath the table. Snatcheroo, while your opponent's wink is in mid-air, she would get a highly trained bird of prey to catch it in its bill. What a cheat. Sticky wink, gluing your opponent's winks to the table. Gigantopot. When your opponent is not looking, replace the pot with one that is much taller than it is impossible for them to fire their winks in. And poot. This is gross, guys. to break wind as your on your opponent's squidger, thus rendering it unusable for a short while. That is absolutely disgusting. One Christmas, Chester bought his big sister the Tiddlywinks rulebook by Professor T. Wink. His hope was that together they would consult the rules and their terrible cheating would cease. However, Alberta point blank refused to even open the book, the Tiddlywinks rulebook. She gathered dust on a shelf at the huge library of Saxby Hall. Ever since she was a child, Alberta was ridiculously competitive. She had to win. Again and again and again. I am the BEEST, she would chant. Her spelling was atrocious. However, this aggressive desire to conquer everyone else is what ended up costing her relatives dear. As soon as she got her hands on some of the Saxby family fortune, thanks to Chester's kindness, she gambled it away. Alberta played at the high-stakes Tiddlywinks tables at the casinos at Monte Carlo. Within a week, the woman had lost everything she had, thousands and thousands of pounds. Next, she sneaked into her brother's study and she pinched his chequebook. Forging his signature, Alberta secretly stole all the money out of Chester's bank account. Within days, she had lost her brother's money too. Every last penny. The family was plunged into terrible debt, from which it was impossible to recover. And as a result, Chester was forced to sell all the possessions he possibly could. Antiques, paintings, fur coats, even his beloved wife's diamond engagement ring. All went to auction houses so Lord Saxby could fight to keep the family home. A home that had been in the Saxby family for centuries. Like any great house, Saxby Hall employed an army of staff to keep it running, a cook, a gardener, a nanny, a chauffeur, and a platoon of maids. However, with all the money squandered by Alberta, they simply couldn't be paid anymore. The bank demanded that they all be fired immediately. So with a heavy heart, Chester had to let them go. Except one, the ancient butler, Gibbon. Lord Saxby tried to give Gibbon his notice a dozen times or more. However, the servant was so old, just short of 100, that he had become very deaf and very blind. As a result, it was impossible to tell him to go. Even if you shouted into his ear, the poor old soul couldn't hear a thing. Gibbon had worked for the Saxbys for generations. He had been in service for them so long he had become part of the family. Chester had grown up with Gibbon looking after him, and he loved him dearly. He was like an eccentric old uncle. Secretly, he was overjoyed that Gibbon stayed at the house, not least because he was sure the ancient butler had nowhere else to go. So Gibbon continued to roam Saxby Hall, carrying on with his duties. Though in a totally topsy-turvy way, Gibbon would mow the carpet with a lawnmower. He would bring in a tray of piled dirty socks and say, "Afternoon tea, my lord." He would iron the plants. He would water the sofa. He would bang a gong in the middle of the night and say, "Dinner is served." He would serve a boiled billiards ball in an egg cup for breakfast. He would polish the grass. He would boil your shoes. He would pick up the lampshade and say, "Saxby Ball speaking, please," thinking it was a telephone. He would take the rug for a walk. He'd put the chicken to roast in the boot of the Rolls Royce. This is a long chapter, isn't it? Stella's mother and father worked tirelessly all day and all night to care for the house and grounds, but Saxby Hall was just too big for them. Inevitably, it fell into disrepair. Soon they had a huge house they couldn't afford to light and an old Rolls Royce that they could barely afford to run. Though his considerable charm, Chester, now Lord Saxby, just managed to keep the angry bank manager in London at bay. When Stella was born, he was determined that his daughter would one day inherit the great house, as he had from his father. Of course, Aunt Alberta had shown she couldn't be trusted with Saxby Hall, so Chester made sure his wishes were crystal clear in his will. The will of Lord Saxby of Saxby Hall. I, Lord Chester Mandrake Saxby, do hereby leave the family home Saxby Hall to my daughter Stella Amber Saxby. In the event of Stella's untimely passing, the house should be sold and the money given to the poor. It is my express wish that my sister, Alberta Hetty, Dorothea Pansy Collins Saxby, should not inherit the house, as she will only gamble it away playing tiddlywinks. To ensure this does not happen, the deeds of ownership to Saxby Hall have been concealed in the house. Somewhere my sister Alberta will never find them. Signed the day of Monday the 1st of January 1921, Lord Chester Mandrake Saxby. And Lord Saxby kept this top secret from his sister. If she ever read it, it would be sure to plunge her into a terrible rage. Chapter 4 is called The Great Bavarian Mountain Owl. Until then, goodbye.